Yeah, hi everybody, thanks for joining me. If you're tuning into ITV News Facebook Live, look, this has been a tumultuous 18 hours in American politics. Trump, who has been kind of incredibly resilient, now looks like he could be in real political trouble as a viable presidential candidate. So I thought we might open it up to a few questions. We could chat about it. Obviously, it's a controversial tape. Much of it is kind of maybe unbroadcastable in some form or unsayable in some form, given the language that Trump used. It's also true to say it was 10 years ago, so he's arguing that he's a changed guy since then. But it raises some big questions about the campaign with exactly a month to go, well, 31 days to go. So if you've got any thoughts, questions, then we can discuss those. But clearly it has the potential, let's put it this way, it has absolutely the potential to be a game changer.
Rob, could you just give a very brief explanation as to what happened yesterday and just the story?
Yeah,
overall?
look, it's almost a media story as much as a political story. That this tape had been in the vault of an NBC production house for some time. They had been searching, some researchers there had been looking through their old Trump tapes to see what lay in them, and they stumbled on this tape in which 10 years ago he'd been on a sort of a Access Hollywood bus with Billy Bush. The cameraman outside was still recording. Trump was mic'd up and hadn't realized that that his voice was being recorded. He made some very abusive comments about some women, suggested that sexual harassment was, well, he either condoned it or suggested he conducted it, depending on your point of view. He used some vulgar, lewd language. Look, none of it kind of very shocking in the sense that we all knew he had this kind of lurid past, that he'd been a kind of a TV reality star, not a politician. So in that sense, not surprising. But look, this is for the presidency of the United States, and Americans may not want a saint, but they want somebody who doesn't embarrass them or embarrass conversations around the dinner table. So it is potentially embarrassing. And the other big factor is the politics of this. What demographic was Trump after? He was after kind of independent women voters. And this is potentially devastating on that front.
Lots of people saying, how is this presidential to behave in this manner? How can someone who's behaved like this end up in a position so, close to the White House?
That is the point. That's why virtually everybody is running away from this. I mean, the big fear is not only that he loses, perhaps that's kind of increased in likelihood substantially in the last 12 hours, but will he take down other Republicans running for the Senate or indeed the House? So there's a real concern that this isn't just about Donald Trump and the presidency. This is about kind of a damage to the entire Republican brand. So that's why it's a political firestorm here. It's much more than about Donald Trump. But you're right. I mean, I don't know anybody. Well, there's a few surrogates out there defending him, but not many. Most people say, look, this is indefensible, and the best excuse they can give is, look, this was 10 years ago, and since then he has changed.
How have Republicans reacted so far?
Well, just making that very point, I mean, isn't it? They're just, how can I put it, aghast, I suppose. Everybody's running away from this. Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House up in Wisconsin, is saying that he doesn't want Donald Trump to appear on a platform with him today. Other Senate candidates are saying they will no longer, it's not just a matter of endorsing Trump, they'll no longer vote for him, implying that they just will abstain in the presidential race on Election Day on November the 8th. I mean, that's stunning stuff. We're talking about mainstream Senate Republicans in the battle of their lives saying they won't vote for the Republican presidential candidate. So, look, this is kind of very much has the sense of people leaping off a sinking ship. Very few people are defending Donald Trump. And so we have a sense of, let's use a word that is definitely accurate today, we have a sense of panic.
How pleased do you think the Hillary Clinton camp are tonight?
I think they are doing cartwheels. I think they're doing high fives. I think they are on their knees thanking the Lord that Donald Trump is their opponent. I think they can't believe their luck. Many recognize that Hillary Clinton is a flawed candidate. It's very difficult to brand her as a candidate of change when she's been a political insider for decades. But they're up against Trump, and this for them is the gift that just keeps on giving. So cartwheels throughout the Clinton camp. Undoubtedly, they can't believe their luck.
There's quite a few people mentioning Hillary Clinton's emails again, and
Sure.
the revelation yesterday about the hacking.
Yeah, good point. I mean, that is a good issue, isn't it? Are we being unfair? Are we judging Trump by a different standard than Hillary Clinton? Should we not be identifying Hillary's duplicity and maybe her alleged corruption in terms of how she handled her email scandal? The answer to that is there's only one story in this town right now. The email scandal has been around for months. She has apologized for it. She's made clear that in the future she will never have a private email server, and she's kind of been seen by most kind of independents or Democrats to have addressed it. The FBI looked at it. Most people think that Comey, the FBI director, is a pretty impartial guy. He decided not to indict her. So there just doesn't seem a lot more ammunition on that to go on at the moment. Of course, it's an issue for voters, particularly Republican voters, who think it's a sign of her kind of corruption and her lack of transparency. But it's got nothing on the question of Donald Trump and his this tape with his lewd and vulgar comments, because it, I mean, you can say many things about Hillary Clinton, but she probably isn't an embarrassment to have in the White House. You haven't got to kind of mute the sound on your TV when she has a conversation. There are many families who are deeply embarrassed today having conversations with their children. Even I've got teenage kids. I've got a couple of girls in the house. Me and my wife had to race to the remote control to mute it during these tapes so that my daughters didn't hear Trump speaking from that bus 10 years ago. If I'm doing that, imagine, independent women voters having to do that across the country last night and this morning. So this has got to be potentially devastating, although, interestingly, probably no way the Republican Party can dump Donald Trump now. So it's kind of too late. This is the perfect storm for the Republican Party.
One interesting comment here from Virginia. Does the media not realise that kicking a dog when it's down encourages people to nurse it back to health? Is this the case for Trump? Interesting question. So the suggestion there being that people will feel sorry for Donald Trump, will blame the MSM, the mainstream media, and kind of rally to his cause. We've got Donald Trump so wrong for so long. I'm not ruling him out entirely of being able to survive this. In fact, Donald Trump has just given an interview to Robert Costa of the Washington Post just a few minutes before we began this Facebook Live, and he has said there is no way that he is leaving this presidential race. As he put it, I just never quit. So that will have an appeal to people. This is a kind of a change election when people are yearning for something different. So for sure, some of the kind of Republican mavericks, some of those who above all else want change in Washington will stick by Trump's side. But this election's never been about them. It's been about who can try and control and gain the support of undecided voters, moderate voters, particularly that demographic that is suspicious of both candidates, namely kind of young millennials and young women. And this has got to be, just from a political point of view, devastating for that demographic. Surely they will now swing towards the Hillary camp. There's a question from Cheryl Smith. Says, do you think his resilience will work in his favour with voters, that he's refusing to stand down, he's refusing to... That's the same sort of thought, isn't it, Cheryl? That, this resilience, does it kind of help him? Well, I think it does amongst some people, but surely it will damage him amongst many more, that centrist bloc that he needs to win. I mean, let's remember, if the status quo holds for the next 31 days, Hillary Clinton is the next president of the United States. So it's not that Donald Trump can just sort of maintain his status quo as a candidate. He needs to gain ground, he needs to gain traction, he needs to win undecided voters. And it's almost impossible for me to see that this tape achieves that, allows him to kind of go to women voters and say, look, I'm on your side and vote for me, not Hillary. So he has his loyalists. He remains competitive in that bracket, but surely not amongst moderate centrist voters. Quite a few people saying these remarks were from 2005, 11 years ago. Why does it matter now if he says he's changed? Maybe he's changed.
That's true. Does what you say in the past matters? I mean, I suppose it's fair to say that 10 years ago makes him, what was he? So he's 69 now, so he was 58, 57 perhaps when he made these comments. He's not exactly a kind of wild teenager. I think for too many people it is a kind of insight into the sort of man he was. And as with all leaks, what it really does is, and why it's so damaging, is it reinforces a stereotype. It reinforces the kind of effort of his opponents to brand him as somebody who is simply not only unqualified to be president, but morally questionable to be president of the United States. So I think that's the risk, is that it reinforces what people feared about him, but that he had tried to overcome on the campaign trail. So yeah, I do judge it to be, well, not necessarily fatal, but close to it.
Leads on nicely to our next question from John Scade, who says, won't the next debate be the final nail in the coffin for Donald Trump?
Yeah, good question, isn't it? I mean, how does he handle it? I mean, he's already threatened in that kind of midnight apology that we just broadcast on our evening news. He's threatened in this debate not to take it lying down, but rather to come out attacking and to say that, look, Hillary Clinton has been an enabler of her husband's sexual abuse, including at the White House. So what is going to happen potentially in Missouri in just over 24 hours' time is a kind of race to the gutter in which both are accusing the other of nothing less than sexual harassment and of vulgar and unacceptable behaviour. I think Hillary wins that battle because she can say that it was not her who was harassing anybody, it was her husband, and that she is not her husband, and that she will be a different president than Bill Clinton was. It's not clear how Donald Trump evades responsibility for that tape, which, as I say, was made when he was in his late 50s, so he can't even blame the kind of, it being a sort of a moment of youth, and can't just say, look, we were all like that when we were that age. So I think it's the debate does become centre stage. If Trump is to survive this, he has to do something extraordinary tomorrow night in St. Louis. He somehow needs to defend himself morally, pivot, and wound Hillary Clinton all at the same time. In a town hall environment, which this debate is tomorrow, wow, that's going to be some political acrobatic act if he is to do that.
A few people are asking, is it possible for the Republicans to just go, no, we've had enough, you're not going to be our candidate?
Wow, I mean, that's such an interesting question. There are no real kind of clear rules, certainly no precedents for this. It seems to me, having read a little bit about some of the clauses in the sort of Republican Party constitution, there's no way they can just abandon him. There is a potential scenario that he could step aside and be replaced, potentially by Mike Pence, who's obviously his vice presidential running mate. But Trump is making clear today that he's not stepping aside. So it's not clear that there can be a coup within the party. It's too late. I mean, remember two key facts. First of all, early voting is already underway in a number of states. So people have already cast, tens of thousands of people have already cast their votes for Donald J. Trump. And secondly, in many more states, there have been these, ballot papers have already been printed. So what happens to those? We are so close to this kind of massive election that it's too late to kind of just handle the logistics of a change of candidate now. So politically, in terms of the intra-party rules, it's difficult to see how Trump goes. Just in the logistics of running this election campaign, I don't see Trump goes. And the third point is he doesn't want to go. So the Republican Party is stuck with this, and it is, as I say, kind of the perfect political storm. Democrats will say, look, the Republicans deserve this. The Republicans are crying into their pillows saying, look, this is just a disaster and could take down not just the presidency, but could take down the Republican majority in the Senate as well.
A couple more questions. How do you think Trump's team, Kellyanne Conway, these people closest to him, are going to come out and defend him against all the criticism he's getting? What on earth are they going to say?
Yeah, look, I think the defence strategy is tricky. They've been sort of wargaming this at Trump Tower overnight, and very few surrogates are emerging to defend it. I think the only defence is going to be Trump's own defence. No surrogate can carry this for him. This is his baggage, his responsibility, and I think everybody in the political world knows that only one man can try and deal with this, and that's the candidate himself. There comes a time when the wave is so great that only the candidate can deal with the consequences of it. So all eyes on that debate tomorrow. Can he basically profoundly apologise, show some humility, not a word we often associate with Donald J. Trump, and can he try and pivot and say, look, this is not the man I am now. I've profoundly changed in the course of this campaign. It's possible that can be done, but I think it's unlikely. Requires almost a character transplant by Trump, because it would require humility and an apology that he's shown himself unable to make so far, and despite all the other gaffes.
Quite a few accusations that the media, maybe including us, aren't reporting on Hillary, and one person saying there's plenty of dirt on her. Why aren't you reporting on that too?
Sure. Look, I mean, we are. I think we all accept that we are, being accused, and I'm not making a comment on it, accused of being disproportionately hard on Donald Trump. In our defence, I've done a lot of reporting on the Hillary Clinton emails, particularly over the Benghazi time, suggested, given a lot of time to Republicans on the Hill who have broadcast accusations that Hillary Clinton is being, well, to put it politely, not transparent, but more than that she's corrupt and morally tainted herself. But we also need to reflect, there is one massive political storm riding in this town right now, and it is about Donald Trump's tapes. You can say many things about Hillary Clinton, as we were saying just a few minutes ago, but not many people say that she's a kind of an embarrassment to their children or to family conversations about politics. People are saying that about Donald Trump at the moment. So, I mean, sure, look, you can fire some arrows at us, and maybe some of them are justified. Nobody's saying that we get this story right every time. I've probably misjudged it, not least misjudged the resilience of Donald Trump. So, I'll accept blame for that. But all we're doing now is basically reporting openly what is nothing less than the implosion of one of America's great political parties. The Republican Party right now is in panic. It's almost impossible to overstate the drama of this. Paul Ryan says he feels sickened by Donald Trump. Senate candidates running for Republican Senate seats are distancing themselves from Trump, and it is dire. And it's not clear how that plays out over the next 31 days, whether he remains even a viable candidate or whether he just loses all 50 states in a month's time.
I think we'll wrap it up there. Robbie, if you've just got one closing thought ahead of tomorrow's debate and this whole scandal that broke last night, what would it be?
I mean, I just think that Americans, I think we all need to understand that the presidency is a different office than the Prime Minister of the UK. It's a different office than political positions elsewhere in other parts of the world. It is true that Americans no longer expect their presidents to be saints. I mean, goodness me, think about Bill Clinton, think about JFK. I mean, there have been some successful presidents who have been seriously morally tainted. But in this 24-hour news cycle, it doesn't feel viable to have a presidential candidate who has used language like he was recorded using 10 years ago, who has openly boasted about sexual conquests and about sexual harassment of women, particularly, and this is the political reality, when he needs women voters to come into his column in order to have any chance of winning in a month's time. So it is devastating. Put the morality to one side, put the comparison to Hillary to one side. Just in naked political terms, he needed women voters, and that is not happening. So it's devastating politically, and all eyes will be on this debate in St. Louis tomorrow night. It's a town hall format, so it means that ordinary people are going to have to confront Donald Trump and ask him some pretty basic questions about his moral conduct in the past. So that's it from us. Look, controversial. I'm sure we'll try and do some more of those maybe after the debate in Missouri. But thanks for joining us, and stay tuned to American politics, because it's in a place that we haven't been in for a long time.